What do you hope from the meeting in Alaska between Antony Blinken and others and the Chinese side, including Yang Jiechi? Obviously Taiwan's going to be on the agenda.
Taiwan has certainly been on the agenda because of a number of aggressive gestures taken on part of the PRC to threaten the stability and the status quo of the region. And the United States has been clear about pushing back against such coercive efforts. And so we hope that that will continue to be a matter of significance. It does require good coordination on part of not just the United States, but also with allies and other like-minded partners who have a joint interest in maintaining peace and stability and the status quo of the region.
Obviously, there's a change in administrations in the United States, and we all know that, of course, under the Trump administration, relations between Taiwan and the United States perhaps had never been stronger. How would you assess, I know it's early days, but how would you assess the Taiwan-U.S. relationship under a Biden administration?
We very much appreciate the fact that United States support for Taiwan has very much been bipartisan. We believe that support is based on our common values and our common interests, our values being our support for democracy and freedom, and our interests being prosperity as well as peace and stability in the region. So based on these values and interests, the support for Taiwan has continued across different administrations, and we continue to see a very strong commitment on part of the Biden administration in their rock-solid support for Taiwan.
How would you describe the optics of a very visible U.S. support of Taiwan on the security and the safety of the Asia-Pacific region?
The security and the defense relationship with the United States is one of the most important relationships that we have. It is critical to Taiwan's continuing survival as a democracy. In the overall relationship, this is a very critical time in our relationship with the United States. There is a lot happening in the geopolitical and geostrategic space. Taiwan does continue to be a force for good, an important security and economic partner to the United States, and we will continue to seek opportunities to work together.
How confident are you when push comes to shove, if push comes to shove, that the United States will fulfill its obligations in the 1979 U.S.-Taiwan Relations Act and come to Taiwan's defense?
The U.S. has continued its commitment in supporting Taiwan's self-defense, and I think what's important here is to emphasize the will and determination of the people of Taiwan to defend ourselves.
Why would this be a U.S. national security issue?
Well, Taiwan is on the front line of dealing with multiple coercions from the PRC, including military, economic, and political coercion. Taiwan has survived against all odds. Our democracy, our freedom, the prosperity and the stability of the region are all at stake. And so I think Taiwan's survival is certainly in the interest of multiple stakeholders in the region.
Would you agree that perhaps semiconductors now is kind of the linchpin in the relationship? The United States obviously has a key interest in securing and procuring more semiconductors, as there's a shortage right now. It's not an industry in Taiwan here that they would necessarily like to see go into the hands of Beijing.
Over the past decades, Taiwan has built a very vibrant and resilient economy with technology and semiconductors as a very important component of that. Taiwan has a very crucial role to play in global supply chains. And as we are working together in global economic recovery following the challenges of the pandemic, Taiwan does want to be a positive component of global recovery. So we do hope that our strategic strengths, including Taiwan's advances and progress in the semiconductor industry, that does play a reinforcing role positively with the growth of the American economy. In that light, we continue to work with the United States in deepening our trade and economic relationship. I think that is a relationship that's good for both our countries, but also good for the world.
What would be the most pressing criteria right now for Tsai Ing-wen or the Tsai administration to have discussions with Beijing. Beijing obviously has put a lot of red lines. They've said to the United States, you're playing with fire, and any talk of independence obviously is a significant red line. They also want Taiwan to recognize one China and the 1992 consensus. Are there, very clear criteria that Tsai Ing-wen would have to have any kind of formal discussions with Beijing at this point?
Our doors have been open to talks as long as the other side respects the will of the people of Taiwan. And we also want to engage with talks that are not conditioned on political demands, such as the one country, two systems formula, which has essentially failed in Hong Kong and rejected by the people of Taiwan. Any elected leader of Taiwan, the president of Taiwan, cannot engage with discussions and talks with China under the demand that we reject the popular will of the people of Taiwan.
I did see a Twitter post of yours eating a pineapple in a Taiwan field. Is this going to expand this pineapple diplomacy where China is banning other agricultural products from Taiwan?
We have been concerned about the utilization of economic leverage to make political gains. This type of coercion has been applied to vulnerable sectors in Taiwan for many years. Now we see it also being applied to Australia and other democracies. And our goal is to further diversify our economy to the extent that we are not as vulnerable to the whims of the Chinese government in terms of agricultural and other procurements from Taiwan.
Turning a little bit more to business, I know you're in Washington, D.C., you're lobbying for a free trade agreement with the United States. So many of the goods that are sent to the United States from Taiwan already are duty-free already. What would be the significance of an FTA with the United States, or is it more symbolic?
We do believe that a trade agreement with the United States would be a signal of confidence to businesses in both our economies to further deepen that economic partnership. We also hope that a trade agreement would provide a framework for dependable and reliable supply chains flowing between our countries. We also hope that it will be a leading role for other economies in the region as Taiwan also pursues being part of the opportunity to be part of regional trade networks such as the CPTPP. We believe U.S. leadership will be important, although the United States is not part of the CPTPP. By engaging with Taiwan on trade talks, that would also help to establish some basis for other economies in the region for engaging with Taiwan on a trade agreement.
Obviously, the USTR designate, Catherine Tai, the U.S. Trade Representative, she grew up in Taiwan, has strong ties to Taiwan. Do you see an ally there on your trade ambitions?
We will look at the issue from a perspective of Taiwan interests and American interests and find areas where our interests do align. And we do believe that Taiwan does meet a number of significant criteria that have been emphasized by the USTR designate, especially in labor standards, environmental standards, and also in being a reliable trading partner. And we hope to pursue our trade relations based on these important elements that are in line with the interests of both our countries.